I recently had a conversation with a very good friend of mine, and what we spoke within that conversation triggered something that I want to share today. But before we dive into it, hi, I'm Henrietta. I'm a mentor and a strategist. Welcome to my channel. Okay, so this very good friend of mine, we were talking about a variety of things, okay? And then there was a particular incident concerning a family member of his, which was somewhat of a dire situation. So I recall last year when she had, tapped into her community, including ourselves, her community of intercessors, okay? Just to be clear. And she's like, yeah, just pray for my brother because of X, Y, and Z that is going on in this current, you know, situation in the world. We are concerned, yada, yada, yada. So fast forward to later this year, we had an event. Then I saw the sibling, right? So when I saw the sibling and she was touching base recently, and while we were talking about all this other stuff, I was like, hey, I noticed that the sibling was here. She's like, oh, I didn't tell you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. By God's grace, everything was resolved. Let me tell you, we were kind of sweating there. And a lot of the people basically had given up. They were telling me things like, oh, you know what? That's it. There's nothing else that can come out from this. Kind of like make peace with it. But she was, still praying and interceding. Yes, I'm a person of faith, in case you didn't know, and so forth. And so I told her, I was like, yeah, I know the situation was dire, but I didn't think that he wasn't gonna come out of it. And she was like, yeah, you know what? That's quite an interesting thing. And I basically said, well, don't you have a covenant with God? And she was like, yeah, I do. And I prayed to him. And there are several things going on, and yeah, I think so. And so I don't recall the full detail of the conversation, but I know the conversation shifted to, well, I have somewhat of an agreement covenant with the Lord, right? One of the things that um, him and I understand very clearly is that as long as I represent him, he is going to bend the rules for me. So she was like, okay, what do you mean by bending the rules? I said, yes, I had labored for several seasons with him. And one of the agreements that him and I have is as long as I um, represent him properly, globally, he's always going to make sure that things work out in my favor. Okay. So he's not going to break the rules, but he's going to bend the rules. And so I started to give her some example. The most recent examples that I could give was this. About 2 years ago, I decided to do a 6 week Europe tour with my little kids. Okay, so we went to Denmark, Romania, UK, and Italy. For those of you who don't know, I was born and raised in Italy, and I thought this would be a great way for my kids to go and kind of see how it was before I moved to the US. And so I explained to her detail by detail what I meant by that. So I started with Denmark. I said, for example, when we went to Denmark, we were there for 3 days. And through this friend of mine, I had made an acquaintance. And that acquaintance, we were not really close. I would touch base maybe once a year just to say hi, hello. And so when I got to Denmark, I was like, you know what, let me just reach to this acquaintance of mine, which is the good friend of my friend. And the lady was so amazing. She dropped everything. And the next day, she's like, oh my gosh, you're here for 3 days? Yeah, yeah, let me walk you through the town, bring the kids over. And our stay in Denmark was just simply amazing, right? We did a lot of walking. She fed us. It was around July 4th. And so I got to learn a little bit about the history between Denmark and the US. There was some stuff going on, some parties, but they spent basically an entire day with me and the kids just so that we would have a great experience. She didn't have to, but that's just what happened. And then after Denmark, we went to Romania, right? And even our transition from Denmark to Romania was the same thing. There were a lot of things that could have um, prevent us because it was hectic. I was myself with the kids and luggages everywhere, and we were almost running late. And oh my God, it was a lot of things. And I wasn't the only mother with kids, okay? For some reason, the minute I got there, so much favor with the luggage. with the lines, getting a personal person walking me all the way to the gates with my kids. I mean, that is something that the Lord did for me, right? I didn't show up like, oh my gosh, if you don't do something, me and the kids. I simply showed up and God touched the people's hearts. And so from Denmark to Romania, the same thing. Once we got to Romania and decided to go to our next destination in the UK, guess what? The same exact thing. As a matter of fact, at the airport, this incident I will never forget. At the airport from Romania to the UK, um, I was supposed to be charged like three times the price for the luggages. Okay, I had three big suitcases plus my daughter's car seat and my daughter's stroller, you name it. And I found an agent that was like, ma'am, technically this is what you're supposed to pay. But then she was like, you know what? I don't know. There's something about you. And so do you just happen to have $100 on you? And you just give me that $100 and I'll take care of things from there. Wow, amazing. And so that's what happened to me. And on top of that, I went to the gate, and she even went as far as to send a message to one of the agents on the other side, because turns out that once I took care of all the luggages and did all of the things I was supposed to do, I was at the wrong gate. And in the intercom, they did say, hey, gate for the UK, it is now at this gate. But for some reason, it's either I didn't hear them or through because of the language barrier. I don't know what it was. I was just sitting at the original gate in hopes that my time will come and my kids and I will board. Well, an agent came all the way from the other gate and came to me and said, excuse me, ma'am, are you Henrietta? I said, yes, what's going on? He's like, come on, we gotta go. The flight to the UK is about to depart. And I said, but I thought I was in the right gate. So we ran, me and the kids ran, we got there, and they're like, I'm so glad you're here. We've been waiting for you for 20 minutes. I was like, I had no idea. And they told me the agent who was at the original who was at the luggage check-in station was the one that actually called them to come search for me so that I could make it on time to the gate. So that was just another thing that God did, okay? And so, oh, and the other part to that story was that was literally the last flight. So if I had missed that flight, that means I would basically have to wait till the next day, spend more money to get a place to stay for me and the kids, more Uber, it was whatever. But that was another prime example of God kind of bending the rules for me, right? Even though I had kids, I wasn't exempted from the usual stuff. Same thing when we went to the UK, favor, favor, favor. Same thing when we went to Italy, favor, 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 all the way back to the United States. And that's just how my life has always been. Okay. And another example that I gave to her is actually quite recently, I believe it was earlier this year, when I registered my business in Dubai. For those of you who don't know, yes, I am an entrepreneur and I have multiple businesses. So when I registered my business in Dubai, the same exact day, I followed the rules, right? I went there for about 9 days, and my business partner said, listen, I know we got to take care of some stuff and it takes quite a bit of time. And so as you're coming, I just want you to come to get the initial, excuse me, phase taken care of. So my expectation was just to go and do the regular stuff. Again, I was following the rules. I did not bypass, I did not call anybody, I didn't do anything special. Okay. And so when I got there, I was there in for about 9 days, so 11 days including travel. I was there for about 9 days, and so my business partner put the application on the day of my arrival. And guess what? Within 24 hours, my application for my Emirates ID was approved overnight. And I recall my business partner like spending one day at the office trying to figure out who had approved it overnight because he couldn't understand, right? Then I went through the fingerprinting process. That also too was like whatever. And then lastly, oh no, I went through the medical process. And then I went through the fingerprinting process, which I would never forget. My business partner was like, hey, know that this is like one of the longest process. We'll probably be there all day. On top of that, it's Friday, and you know, Friday in a Muslim country, we have to go and pray. So just be prepared to have somewhat of delay because that's how the rules work in that country. Long story short, mine was just 30 minutes. It was just 30 minutes. The representative was super nice. We ended up having conversation, telling me all these places that I need to go visit when I get there, come with the family. Like, it was an amazing experience. And the business partner was just like, I am so shocked. Since you got here, everything has worked for you at the speed of light. But guess what? I was still doing everything according to the laws of the land. Like, I didn't bypass anything. And the last bit of that was when I was returning back to the US. And at exactly like, I don't know, between midnight and 1:30 a.m. is when like the biggest miracle, which I'm about to share with you, happened. And when I was returning back, I was stopped by immigration. And immigration was like, yeah, we're not letting you go. In our system, it shows that you have an Emirates ID. Where is your Emirates ID? I said, sir, my passport said I came in with a visa. It was stamped and it said that I came in with a visa. And yes, I did have an application to apply for my Emirates ID, but it was approved, but I don't have it. So you have to give it to me. Like, no, 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 we can't let you go. It's either you forfeit your Emirates ID application or you stay and get that resolved. Man, that was a tough time. I called my husband. I'm like, babe, these people are not letting me go. This and this is what they're saying. My husband started calling his connections to figure out what's going on. I called my spiritual mentor, the same thing. I said, my lady, I don't know what's going on. These people don't want to let me go. I was frantic. And then she was the one that said, but you know what? Maybe God wants to take care of some things. So why don't you allow God to take care of some things? And so I said, okay, whatever. And so I was going back and forth with the representative at the immigration office at the airport. And then the agent basically said, you know what? You said you have a business partner, right? I said, yes. Does he speak Arabic? And I said, yes. He said, call him for me. My business partner was like 45 minutes to an hour away at like midnight, between midnight and 1 a.m. So he had to take the first taxi or Uber that he could get to come all the way to the airport to present himself with his Emirates ID so they could let me go. Long story short, at exactly 1:20 a.m. in Dubai, they issued me my Emirates ID. Like I bypassed like several steps because before you get it, you need to get another permit that you're gonna use for your Emirates ID. I get a digital copy of it at exactly 1:20 a.m. Like at exactly 1:20 a.m. For those of you who don't know, it's a whole process. Go look it up and you see what I'm saying. And so when I did it, they were like, here you go. Just make sure when you come back that you don't let anybody stop you because you're one of us. Technically, once they take a photo of you, that's it. Come back and don't let anybody stop you because you're one of us. And I called my husband and I was like, listen, I know the covenant that I have with the Lord, okay? And I know he has bent some rules for me, but this one blows my mind. This one blows my mind because at 1:30 or 1:20 a.m., who is there to do this kind of stuff? Who is there to approve this kind of stuff? From the first time I got my application all the way to me getting here and getting a digital version of it, that's unheard of. And he also said, you know what? You did always say that you have a covenant slash an agreement with the Lord. And so this is one of his ways of bending the rules for you. You see, I shared all of this with my friend, and she was like, wow, we don't ask God for enough. And I said, I absolutely agree. Okay. Now, I shared with her this testimony to also let her know that one of the things that I have agreed with the Lord about is in First Peter 2:9. He said, you are a chosen generation, you are a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people to proclaim the greatness of the one who brought you out of the darkness into the light. And so I said, I named my nonprofit organization after him. I've named other businesses, including the one in Dubai, after this word of God. And so the expectation is that everywhere that I go, as long as I'm representing God, either through myself, through the organization, whatever it is, God will bend the rules for me. Not because I am special, not because, well, I am special in that sense, but not because I've done anything. right? But that is the agreement when I was in the secret place with my father for all of those years when I was like laying it before him. It wasn't just about being obedience, but it was, this is the agreement. You told me that I need to be obedient, go to the nation to proclaim the one who brought me out of the darkness and into the light. And she said, you know what? I am so inspired by your story because he has encouraged me to speak, to just pray big prayers. I said, yes, these are one of the things that I am comfortable about and comfortable sharing. And I'm also comfortable and certain and firm that everywhere that I go, as long as I follow the laws of the land, God will create a loophole for me. Okay. And so I don't always live by this principle. My husband likes to kind of say, well, you're not the only one in this boat. And I always tell him, I don't mean to be selfish, but I don't care about other people. I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm really serious. I know the agreements that I have with my father. Now, while that agreement stands, okay, there may be some season where he uses other words to tell me what's going on in that situation, right? To encourage me to hang on tight. So one of the example is that this season he says, Elroy, right? The God that sees me. That is the word. That is the word that is applied to my life in this current season. Okay. Sometimes he does that. He assured me that as long as I see him as the God who sees me, just like the prayer that Hagar had, things are going to come through. They're just not going to come through like in the previous season, but he's going to uphold his word that he has for me. I just have to look at him as the God who sees me. Okay. So in my trials, in my downtime, in my lows of lows, I should remember that name, Elroy, the God who sees me. And so you can have that, right? You can go through different seasons where he speaks to you in a certain direction. It doesn't forfeit the First Peter 2:9 agreements that the Lord and I have. No, it does not forfeit that. No, it's just that in this particular season, as he's preparing new and bigger doors, I should be reminded of him as Elroy. Okay. Now, if you're watching me today, I just simply want to encourage you and also to challenge you to figure out what your commitment or your agreement, that's the right word, with the Lord should be. Because everybody has a level of agreement that they have with the Lord. I'm not talking about the agreement, I'm not talking about it in a transactional stance. I am talking about it from a perspective that as long as you're performing in the ministry that God has called you, as long as you're walking in the purpose that God has called you, there is a particular agreement that He has with you so that you can fulfill that purpose or you can walk in that ministry. So for me, is a first Peter 2:9. Okay, I've actually named a whole nonprofit organization a chosen G or a chosen generation based on that. He had said in previous seasons, and I've been keeping up with that because it is the mission and is also the purpose that the Lord had instilled in me before I was in my mother's womb. Okay. And so I want to challenge you because it will help tailor your prayers. I don't pray like, God, give me this, give me that. I literally pray and say, God, give me insight, give me understanding, give me wisdom. I stopped doing things like um uh uh beginning of the year resolution many years ago. It doesn't mean that I'm not somebody who structures their life. I'm a very analytical person. You best believe that structure is the thing that I live by. But I stopped doing that because the Lord started revealing to me very early on how Him and I were going to operate. Okay, so I don't look at other people, I just look at how Him and I operates, right? And what He tells me and what He shows me through scripture and through other avenues. Okay, and in the midst of that, He brings other people that shapes the season or helps me develop a bit more so I can get to the destination that God has for me. So yeah, so just as a recap, don't just pray, oh God, give me. It has to be specific, it has to be targeted, but most importantly, there is an agreement that you and the Lord need to have so that you can live the season out properly, right? Because remember, as believers, First of all, if you're not a believer, that's okay. This concept applies to you as well. But if you're a believer, we technically live in a different time zone than the regular season, or a different season than the other seasons, than the natural seasons of the Lord. I am so sorry. Okay, that was weird. There we live in somewhat of a separate season, because of the God factor that I always say. And so as you are listening or watching this video, I want to challenge you in that area. May your prayers be more specific, more targeted, and make sure that you understand the kind of agreements that God wants to go with you, because that's how you are going to be like me, where a process that was supposed to take several months, I got it within 9 days. Okay, and I'll dive into the details of it in another video, because when I came back, I did all the research. I just couldn't believe it. But I could also agree and understand that God did that for me, because it's just one of our agreements, right? That everywhere that I go, as long as I wear God and show God, He is going to bend the rules for me. So I hope this video encourages you. I'd like to hear some of the examples or some of the testimonies that you have. Yes, some of the testimonies where God has spoken to you clearly and you're like, okay, God, I can sign up with this with you. Okay. And if you have it and you're curious on how to get there, I would like to also hear about that as well. So yeah, I hope to see you on the next video.